And the last element to an effective presentation is proximity. So the idea behind proximity is that we are trying to move things closer or further apart in order to achieve a more organized look. So we're going to go straight into a couple of examples to understand what this means. So over here on the left, we have a potential title slide where we have Principles of Presentation Design, Tips on How to Think Like a Designer by Les Nessman and director of the PRKW Institute. So you'll notice how these are equally spaced apart and they're all the same size, and it kind of just looks like a nice bland slide that has a little logo on the bottom over here. So it kind of lacks design priority due to poor use of alignment and poor use of proximity. So there's no like alignment, there's no nice line on the left-hand side to show that these ideas are next to each other, kind of like how we showed in the last video. And also, there's no good way that links this information together. So these different slides over here are kind of like a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It's progressing to build better and better proximity, and also to improve some of the other elements. So in order to talk about proximity, I want you to see the second sentence on tips on how to think like a designer, to see how this was moved closer to the first phrase over here. So what happened here is it uses a little bit more symmetrical balance where this is centered and this is centered, but this is kind of like an idea underneath the principles of presentation design. This is also shown with contrast by highlighting principles of presentation design, which is the title of the presentation, and kind of like the subtitle of like, well, what's going to be in this presentation? It is about tips on how to think like a designer. So it's given less contrast to show that it's not as important of a thought, and it's also a slightly smaller font to show that it's a subtopic of the title slide over here. The topics were also moved closer together to show proximity, to move those thoughts, to show you that this is a sub-idea of the first idea, whereas these all look equally important, so you think that they're all kind of like the same. So this over here has better contrast and also has better proximity to move those ideas closer together, and then the proximity over here brings this down to the middle, and it's still centered, but it's kind of like a little bit too small. It doesn't have exactly the right ratio for this presentation. So if we go on to the third part of the presentation, we can see how they've changed the proximity where we originally had the principles of presentation design. It focused even more on the idea that this presentation is not on principles of presentation design, but it is on presentation design. They've included this little red dot on the eye over here to kind of make the word design stand out more because it is all about design, and this presentation is about design. So it shifted the focus using contrast a little more, but it also used proximity to show you that this principles of is really small next to it to show you that the whole presentation is on presentation design. So it's using proximity to move these words close to how important it is to the ultimate title. And then over here, tips on how to think like a designer, they shifted this over to this side right below as well. So greater contrast and greater interest is shown. The red dot in the title ties into the red logo at the bottom over here, so there's a little bit of linking going on. Lastly, the fourth and final version of this presentation slide is they turned they turned the background black in order to show contrast with the rest of the presentation over here, and they changed the name to white in order to make the name stand out more, while their role was a little bit less important over here. So the idea behind proximity is in making these words closer together so that they have a different priority. So going back to the article on priority, it's all about this design priority. A slide is not a page in a book or magazine, so you're not going to have more than a few elements or groups of elements. So we have to figure out where our eye goes first and then design that around the presentation. So if we were to look at this slide from the very end, we would see this little red dot and we'd see the word design. Then we'd work our way backward to say, oh, what about design? It's presentation design. Oh, well, what about it? It's the principles of that. So it's kind of drawing your eye and focusing on that and working your way back. So that's the idea behind proximity. And the last part about proximity is if you look around my classroom, you'll notice that everything on the slide is readable. And around my classroom, you'll notice that everything in the room has been designed using proximity so that every poster, anywhere from the How to Learn poster, the Vex parts, the group roles, Wikor, Crap, all of it has been designed so that you can read it from anywhere in the room. So the last part of of proximity is making sure that you can read it from anywhere in the room. So in order to do that, I recommend standing up, going 10 feet away from your computer, and asking yourself, can the viewer see this? So that's it on the last idea of proximity. Have a good one.